Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam, ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Inshallah, you're all doing well. If you are a Muslim woman, if you are striving to be your best self, you're very aware of your imperfections, but you're actively trying to learn and implement Islam. And you're doing this despite your tests, despite your experiences, despite your shortcomings. But you are tired of hearing these debates that question a Muslim woman's place in the world. Tired of being branded a feminist for rightly calling for your rights. Then this video is for you, inshallah. May Allah make it beneficial. Unfortunately, we live in a red pill era, and I'm really tired of feeling the need to mention it. I mean, we have empathy with the red pillars because feminism did a number in all of us. And it's not just feminism, but feminism being one of them. The difference is, though, that Muslims, we don't see or shouldn't say red pill is the answer. However, unfortunately, we have seen this seep into the Ummah. Some Muslim men online are really open about their love and need to study the red pill ideology. Some are more subtle. We'll see some give their own interpretation to suit their narrative, their agenda online, to suit their niche. You have some who straight out say that Muslim women, they're not even allowed an academic education, but when it comes to Islam, they're calling for a really basic Islamic education. And honestly, that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. It was. So I felt the need to make this video. Now, I could come on here and just give my own opinion, quoting Quran and Sunnah to support my argument, which is very easy. But again, who am I? I'm just a woman. I'm just a sister, right? So I thought I would react to a video from a respected channel in person that would do it for me instead. The channel I'm referring to is the One Message Foundation, who features a respected sheikh from America called Sheikh Uthman ibn Farouk. As many of you will know, they're known for their street dawah, but also they feature different types of darus. And now they're doing a new series that is called The 100. And from what I can see is that the Sheikh is going to be going over 100 important people in history in terms of Islam, which I think is such an important area of study. This episode is the first episode that focuses on Khadija bint Khuwaylid radiallahu anha. So I thought this would be a fantastic video to listen to learn from, that can contribute to us striving to be our best selves, inshallah. So let's begin. Bismillah.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wassalam ala khatim al-anbiya ashraf al-mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in amma ba'd. Today, I'll begin with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in the Quran, Ba'da a'udhu billahi minash shaitan ar-rajim, sabiqun as-sabiqun. He talks about those that are the forerunners, the ones that are the forefront of all good. أولئك المقربون. They are the ones that are the closest. And we'll talk about this. في جنات النعيم. And they are in the gardens of delight. Now, when we recite it, we don't think about the meanings. Sabiqun are those that are racing ahead. Forerunner, the one that tries to get ahead. Allah SWT repeats it twice. Sabiqun as-sabiqun. Some people think that this is just the forerunners that are ahead of others, but then it would be mudaf ilayh, and it's not. They're both ma'rifah here, right? And that's a very deep thing to think about. Here, I'm not going to go into the Arab so much, but this is actually what I see is the mubtada and khabar, and they're both marfu'. It's telling you about them. That when we talk about sabiqun, who are they? They are the sabiqun. Like if I tell you, you're the one, say me, and I say, yeah, you, right? There's an emphasis that gets put on that. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you that they are the one that will be the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they will be in the highest levels of Jannah, that will be closest to the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will be in gardens of delight.
And this complements what I was saying before, right? It's really important that we learn about the best of people, because like the Sheikh just said, these are the people that will be closest to Allah. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said. So we should be looking at their lives, how they dealt with things, looking at their characteristics. Our example, first and foremost, is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But especially as women, we should be looking at the women who surrounded the Prophet ﷺ, who were beloved to him, and recognize why they were beloved to him. What did they do for him? What did they do for Islam? What did they do for the cause, And we should aspire to be that. Rome wasn't built in a day, so it takes time, but you need to know what it is you're trying to achieve. You need to know what it is you're trying to implement and what you're trying to perfect. Anyway, let's continue.
الشيخ عبد الرحمن ناصر السعدي الأستاذ الشيخ ابن عثيمين he said سابقون في الدنيا إلى الخير يعني إلى الخيرات. They are the ones that were the first to run towards good deeds. You know, when there's a dars, those who go first and sit in the front and wait and be ready, those that when there is a need for sadaqah, they're the ones to donate first. When there is a need for jihad, they're the ones ready before anybody else. When there is a need to stand up for the deen, they are the ones that are ready to volunteer. They're not the ones being pushed. They're not the ones being dragged. They're the ones at the forefront are like, I'm ready. You need it? I'm down.
This is such an important point. And actually, just before I set up to react to this video, I had a little look at the views of the videos. When you compare the views of this new series in comparison to the street dawah, like the numbers are like on two different levels. These durus get much lower viewership than the street dawah. Now, obviously, everybody has their interests, but at the same time, how do you expect to get the best if you're not putting your best in? The street dawah is good, and there's a lot to learn from it in terms of speaking to non-Muslims that have different backgrounds and come from different religions, looking at the common questions, etc., and the common stereotypes or misconceptions so that we can better our own dawah. Like, all of that has its place and is great. But when it comes to learning Islam, it really does require you to sit down and listen to someone of knowledge, looking at the preserved sources, looking at the tafsir, looking at the sunnah, looking at the shar, taking notes, asking questions. This is how people increase their knowledge. It increases your iman, it increases your good actions and your good speech, to inshallah reach a level of ihsan, and inshallah share that with the people. We should be running towards these type of videos. We should be running towards the mosque when someone of knowledge is giving a lecture. If you want to reach the higher ranks of Jannah, you need to put in the work. Anyway, let's continue.
They're the ones that push forward. And you look in the life of the Sahaba, you will find that they are the ones that push ahead in the khairat, in a good team. فَهُمْ سَابِقُونَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ لِلدُّخُولِ الْجَنَّةِ. Then they are the first ones that will be running ahead and getting into Jannah first. Because in dunya, they pushed, they went forward, they were forerunners in good. Allah will make them ahead of everybody else in entering the Jannah.
Inshallah.
Many ulama explain these ayat in a very beautiful way. Well, what يعني شاهد من الكلام, as we say, what is important from this speech for us is those Sahaba radiallahu anhum that were the first, that were the earliest that accepted this deen and sacrificed for this deen. They are the ones praised in these ayat. From them, be first to accept Islam. The correct opinion. Now, in the last dars, we spoke about the first Shahida, the first martyr for Islam. Who was it? Sumayya radiallahu anha. Who was her husband? Yasir radiallahu anhu. Her son? Ammar radiallahu anhu. The first one to give her life out of men and women. Like, this is not a quota we're giving here, you know? Like, here we have in America, they're like, this is the first woman to do this. They don't just say the first to do it. And this is the first woman that went to space. They don't just say who's the first who went to space. We're not doing it that way. This is not affirmative action. The first, men, women, put everybody together. The first to give her life for Islam was a woman. Men, women, put together. The first to accept Islam, woman. Before any man. Before Ali radiallahu anhu, before Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, before Zayd ibn Harith radiallahu anhu, was Khadija radiallahu anhu. Sabiqa, and she was the first to run to accept the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Obviously, there were Muslims in previous nations. Ibrahim alayhi salam, and I'm not saying the first in that sense. You know, this sometimes the Christians, they try to play tricks. You know? They will say, Awwal, yani, the first to accept, and they'll find an ayah where Ibrahim alayhi salam will say, I'm the first to accept. They'll say, oh, he's the first, then how can somebody else be the first? No, every situation is different. For example, if I said the first student in the dars today was Abdurrahim, for example, right? That doesn't mean that there was no student that was ever first for any other dars in the past. No, the first to accept the risala of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and those would be different. But the first to accept the message of Islam from the risala of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa Khadija radiallahu anha. So no doubt these ayat, they praise those early Muslims. Al-Dhahabi, when I looked up, he wrote about her, just the introduction to her was so beautiful. He said, Khadija, al-Mu'mineen, the mother of the believers, Sayyida, the leader for Niswat al-Alameen, the women, the leader of the women of all of the Alameen fi zamaniha. She was the leader of the women, of all of the women of her time. Look at that praise. Al-Qasim, She is the mother of Al-Qasim, and we'll talk about her children, inshallah. Ibn al-Khuwaylid, of the daughter of Khuwaylid, Ibn Asad, Ibn Abdul Uzza, Ibn al-Qusay, Ibn al-Kilab, al-Qurashiyya, al-Azdiyya. كانت عاقلة جليلة. What does he say about her? Al-Dhahabi, he says, he gives her lineage. She was the daughter of Khuwaylid, who was the son of Asad, who was the son of Abdul Uzza, who was the son of Qusay, who was the son of Kilab, and she is Qurashi, yani from the tribe of Quraysh, al-Azdiyya, from the subsection of Banu Asad. But then he says about her, كانت عاقلة. She was very intelligent. Jalila, yani dignified. Jalila, it's a hard word to translate. And this is the good point. I don't watch a lot of YouTube, to be honest. I watch some durus, some here and there, but like the drama, I don't waste my time with it. This guy said this about this person and this, the shock value stuff, waste of time. But I hear things. One of the things I heard that somebody online said, you should marry stupid women. Brother, die. You shouldn't marry stupid. And a lot of sisters reacted to that. And then a lot of brothers, I don't know what they did, and stayed quiet at home. I don't know.
Allahumma barak, may Allah reward the Shaykh for making this point. This is a common red pill narrative that we hear today, but it has absolutely no Islamic basis. It could be that it's to excuse men or to relieve men from the duty and the need to increase their own knowledge and to focus on their own intelligence, or it is to disguise an actual real issue within a marriage, advising young Muslim men that it would be more beneficial for them to marry unintelligent women, which is an insult in itself, if I'm honest. It's clear corruption to me. What kind of effect do you think that's going to have in the family? What kind of effect do you think that's going to have in the raising of your kids? An intelligent woman doesn't by default equal a feminist. An intelligent woman doesn't by default equal an arrogant and self-centered person. Like, we really need to differentiate appropriately. Yes, different types of ideologies have seeped into the Ummah, red pill being one of them, and we fight that accordingly, whether it be towards the females or the males. And this is our contribution to keeping the religion preserved, looking at the Quran and the Sunnah, where we get the definition of good and bad, what's morally right and wrong, and we compare our potential spouses to that, inshallah.
But this is an incorrect statement. Islamic. The way Islam, one that we want our brothers and sisters to be like, none of them were foolish. None of them lacked. They were all intelligent. So you should marry intelligent women. What does it mean intelligent? It doesn't mean that they have PhDs or high IQ scores. Intelligent, that they know the religion and they know how to be a good wife and how to support her husband and how to build her household and how to raise her children and how to spread the religion within the limits that Allah has placed upon her. That is what an intelligent husband is, who knows the religion, who knows the huquq, who knows how to serve the religion without crossing the boundaries. This is what you should look for. And no doubt that the Salaf, the earlier generations, they would look to marry intelligent women. Khalid bin Walid and others, we talked about how they would look, why they knew that would have an effect on their children. Now, sometimes you don't know. You marry somebody and then you're like, oh man, right? But you do your best. You look for the pious, intelligent, good-natured brother or sister. I mean, if a woman is marrying a man, she should look for those qualities in a man. And if a man is going to marry a woman, he should look for those qualities in a woman. Khadija radiallahu anha, she was married at a young age. And that was the reward. This is the tradition, the adat of the Quraysh, of the Arab of the time. We don't know exactly about her earlier marriages. And we'll talk about before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, some of the Rafidah, they have some strange opinions. Because I read, and when I'm preparing these durus, I read a lot of them. These books are just for one masala. I go through a lot of books and I read some even weak opinions and stuff. Because as a researcher, I have to read those and make sure that what I'm presenting to you is correct to the best of my abilities and ask Allah for forgiveness for my shortcomings. That's strange. They said, no, she's never married before. But then some of their own books talk about her earlier children. So I don't know how that works. So, no doubt that she was married. And we have Kutub al-Tariq, they talk about this. And her first husband, that was before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she had two husbands before. He is known as Abu Harith. But this is a kunya, Abu Harith. His own name, the majority of the ulama have come to say his name was Malik. Malik, and he was from Banu Tamim, at Tamim. He's mostly known as Abu Harith, but this is what we know about him. and she had children from him. We'll talk about her children in a minute. Then some of the ulama said that he died. Allah knows best, because again, these are not very relevant to Islamic ulum, so we don't have like Rasulullah didn't tell us in a hadith or Allah in the Quran about him, so we go by historic reports that he died. And at that time, many of the men would die in wars, and they would go for trade, and the caravans would get raided and other things like this. So after his death, she married a man named Atiq ibn A'il, and he was Makhzumi. Banu Makhzum, he was al-Makhzumi. Atiq also died, according to the majority of the ulama, although there is an opinion that they were divorced, but what is correct is both of them died. From them, she had children, two of them that we can confirm for sure, right? And I've talked about this in other durus, I'm not going to go deep into this here, is Hind ibn Abu Hala, or ibn Abi Hala, and he is listed amongst the Sahaba. Yani after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's da'wah began, he accepted Islam. And there is Hind bint Atiq, and even though their name is spelled the same, because the word name Hind would be used for men and women amongst Arab, but this is a daughter, and she is from the second husband, Atiq, and she's a Sahabiya as well. So as far as we can find in Kutub al-Tariq, and you can check al-Isaba of Ibn Hajar, Asqalani, both of them, they accepted Islam later on, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam message came.
MashaAllah, this is also an important thing to know, both as brothers and as sisters. You know, when we are hearing these red pill narratives and they speak against marrying women who have been previously married, who have kids to those marriages, we hear what the non-Muslim red pill agenda says about these types of women. They say don't marry them, or don't expect a future with them, be with them on a temporary basis. All things and mentalities that are completely outside the fold of Islam. But again, we are seeing now that Muslim men with these red pill tendencies are spouting the same stuff. The mother of the believers was married twice before the Prophet ﷺ and had kids to both those marriages, saying things like investing in the kids has no benefit to you, has no goodness in it, you gain nothing out of it. That sort of mentality is coming from a place that is solely focused on the dunya. And if you're focused on the dunya, then live your best life. But as Muslims, isn't our focus the akhirah? Isn't the advice when it speaks about looking for a spouse, that you're looking for righteousness, that you're looking for these good characteristics? That's where the focus is. Like, we are above such narratives, you know. Muslims are supposed to have the class, the dignity, the honor, to not cheapen the ummah, to not cheapen the people within the ummah.
From Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she had 5 children. And this is what is authentic, what is correct. Al-Qasim being the eldest, Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad radiallahu anhu, and he died as a child, and he also is known by some other names. Sometimes he's Tahir and Abdullah and so on. But what is correct is most of the ulama have said that these were names that he had. Zainab bint Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that was also from Khadija radiyallahu anha. Al-Kalthum, Ruqayya, Fatima radiyallahu anhunna. These are all daughters from Khadija radiyallahu anha. In fact, all the children of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam are from Khadija radiyallahu anha, except Ibrahim. Ibrahim, he was born to Maria al-Qibtiyya. So, from the 6 children of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what we know is 5 of them were born to Khadija radiyallahu anha. What we also know from the khasa'is, from the special characteristics of Khadija radiyallahu anha, that as long as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was married to Khadija radiyallahu anha, he did not take a second wife. At that time, he just kept 1 wife. After her death, he alayhi salatu wasalam, yes, he married other women, and each one of those marriages after the death of Khadija radiyallahu anha were for Islam, or for the religion. In the Sirah Durus that we've already completed, each marriage that we got to, I explained the reason for it, the Islamic reason, the benefit to the religion.
There's a couple of things I want to point out at this point. The Sirah series from OMF and Sheikh Uthman is a great series, so definitely check that out if you're wanting to learn about the life of the Prophet ﷺ. And it gets into it in great detail, so I would definitely, if you're going to listen to it, bring a notepad and pen. And the second point that I want to point out, which is obvious, I think anybody watching this knows that it's coming, is about this fixation on polygyny. Now, polygyny is a part of Islam. It is a part of our deen. You can make all the excuses in the world that times have changed and there's not really a need for it. Like, all of that is rubbish. And honestly, I say this as a woman who wouldn't want this for herself. I have no problem in saying that. This is a part of our nature as women. But polygyny is a main feature in these Muslified red pill discussions, yeah? And the only thing I want to say on it is, if this is the road that you want to go down, if you really want to implement the sunnah of having more than one wife, is just be wise when you're going down that avenue. Ensure that you understand the ayats that permit polygyny. Recognize both parts, that yes, you're allowed 2, 3, and 4. But if you cannot be fair between them, then you should have only one. If you are capable of being fair, then your jihad is to juggle 2, 3, or 4 wives. But if your jihad is to be one, then let it be one. Not everybody can be in a polygynous marriage. Not everybody can be in a monogamous. It's down to the individuals that are involved. Don't just look at it surface level and dive in. And understand that these newly created terms like no strings nikah and all this rubbish, if you were to bring that to proper shuyukh, it might, through technicalities, fall within the permissibilities of Islam. I assume that would probably be advised against. So again, it goes back to what I began with. Be wise when you're going down these avenues, because real people involved, heavy responsibility comes with that. That's all I want to say, inshallah.
Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was young, we're talking about before his marriage to Khadija radiallahu anha, before he reached the age of 25. And when he was over 20, before 25, he was well known amongst the Quraysh for his honesty. This is something very interesting. You know, people have habits. And habits very seldom change. Personalities change, circumstances change, habits are very hard to change. And that's why you should always be very careful about what you do. If something you do constantly becomes a habit. When it becomes a habit, it starts to become a part of your personality. Be careful of lying, be very careful of the way you carry yourself, because sometimes that becomes a part of you.
Absolutely. The choices you make and the actions you do will determine the person that you become. So if you're constantly trying to increase your good action and increase the good that you do, increase your good practice, that is the person, inshallah, you'll ultimately become. It's the same when it comes to bad actions. That is why we shouldn't underestimate the small sins.
Yourself to good habits, to honesty, to bravery. If somebody is brave before Islam, they'll be in Islam. Khalid bin Walid was brave before Islam, he was brave in Islam. Umar bin Khattab was Umar before Islam, he was Umar in Islam. But Islam shined them. Islam gave them purpose. Islam gave them the nusrah of Allah. But those traits were there, right? Somebody who's a coward, even if they become Muslim, very seldom have I seen that somebody suddenly just becomes like very brave. It could happen, but it's rare, right? If somebody's bakhil, they're stingy, they could become Muslim, they'll still have that, even if they might be able to fight it off, to be able to be Islamically correct, but it's there, right? Khadija radiallahu anha, she was very...
I definitely get and understand and have seen very similar to what the Shaykh is saying here. But if anybody's trying to better themselves or increase the areas where they fall short, Islam is the avenue to do that. Islam is there to counsel you throughout life, as well as build the best of characteristics in order to justly go about life, you know? Alhamdulillah.
Honorable even before Islam. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was known for his honesty before prophethood. And that is why when he brought the Risala, when he told the people about what happened with Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, even the Quraysh said, we have never known him to lie. He is such an honest person that it was unfathomable that he's going to lie. His honesty and his honor and his good character was so famous that Khadija radiallahu anha, she was told by the people that you should hire him for your business. Her husbands had passed away, the two that we had talked about. She had their wealth, and she would send out carriage. She wouldn't go herself. This is before Islam. She wouldn't go and be like, I'm going to get on that camel and I'm going to go and argue with people in the marketplace. No, she had that honor, that dignity. She didn't need a husband in that sense of financial stability or anything. But when she saw somebody of that good moral character, she wanted to now send a proposal. That's something very strange now. Imagine a woman sending a proposal. Very difficult. And the Arab of that time and everything. So the way she did it, she sent a woman named Nafisa. The details I've gone over in the Sirah, that's not really the point here, but I'm going to go over a little bit. Yeah, she was also very intelligent. She came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and she said, Muhammad, he's not a messenger, he's not given Nabuwa at this time. Obviously, he's a messenger in the sense that Allah wrote his Nabuwa before he was even born. But the Risala has not begun yet. Quran has not been revealed to him yet. So she tells him, why don't you get married? You're young, around 25 years of age. You're honest, you're trustworthy. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, yes, it's a good idea, but how do I find a woman of honor and dignity? And again, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not wealthy. Because again, we talked about his background, Abu Talib, and the number of children and all of that, and the struggles that we're going through financially. He was working for Khadija radiallahu anha, but obviously every man wants to get married at that age anyway. He says, would you suggest somebody? Nafisa said, why don't you marry Khadija? And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I mean, she is somebody of honor and wealthier than me and well known. Would she marry somebody like me? And Nafisa told her, I'll take care of it. And I'll help you out. And that's the intelligence of women here, mashallah, She didn't come and say, oh yeah, she told me. No, she said, I'll hook you up. Don't worry about it. I'll do you a favor. She already knew Khadija radiallahu anha had wanted to this proposal to go forward. The talk of marriage began. Now we get to the issue of the age of Khadija radiallahu anha at the time of her marriage. And this is something, again, commonly, Al-Mubarak and Al-Rahiq and most books that we read today in English, if you look at Karen Armstrong, non-Muslims or others, they will put 40. And many speakers in their videos, they'll make a big deal, like she was 40 and he was 25, and look at this. And people love to quote this and so on, but this is not correct. This is a book that I brought, Sirah Nabi al-Sahiha of Dr. Akram al-Amri, very excellent book if you want to look at the authenticity of things from the Sirah. And he discusses this issue, bringing the aqwal of the ulama of the past about the age of Khadija radiallahu anha. He mentioned that Ibn Ishaq, the famous scholar of Tariq, he said that she was 28 years of age, and he said that those narrations that mention her to be 40 are reported by Al-Waqidi. All of the narrations that they go back to discuss the age of Khadija radiallahu anha being 40, these are from Al-Waqidi. Al-Waqidi is matruk in hadith. He's not just da'if, he's rejected in hadith. So those narrations are extremely weak. And then he mentions some other opinions and things that are mentioned by Ibn Ishaq and other evidences that show that at the age of her death, she was 50. Remember that, age of death, 50. This is Al-Isaba of Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, standard book. I'm sure all of you guys know about it. And he mentions here the marriage of Khadija radiallahu anha. فكان تزوج النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام خديجة, and she was 25 سنة. She was 25 years of age. This is Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani and Al-Isaba. Rahiq al-Makhtum, the standard book that studied, a really excellent book by Al-Mubarak Puri, wonderful book, but it does mention the age of Khadija radiallahu anha to be 40, and that is a mistake based on a matruk hadith. There is an excellent taliq. I mean, this is a book that is written as a commentary or on that book itself. And here it mentions as well from Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma that her age was 28 or around that age, and this is mentioned by Ibn Asakir. Okay? The last of the books that I brought here is Bidayah wa Nihaya, Ibn Kathir's famous Bidayah wa Nihaya. That's a standard that is studied. When I first mentioned this, by the way, in the early durus, I was in shock myself because I had never heard this. When I was going to teach this, I read these things, and I go through these books, and I was like, man, am I tripping? Like, am I? Because everybody. So I called one of my shuyukh and I told him, Shaykh, I saw this. He told me, no, you're wrong. I told him, Shaykh, I'm telling you, I read it. He said, where do you? I told him Bidayah wa Nihaya. He looked it up, and then he called me back. He said, Subhanallah, you're right. And he goes, I've taught Bidayah wa Nihaya, and I never thought about this. So, this is something mentioned. So in Bidayah wa Nihaya, he mentions here, Ibn Kathir, بلغت خديجة رضي عنها 65 سنة. That there is an opinion that she was 65 years of age at death. Now this is the narration from Waqidi. Now if she was 65, and we know she died 10 years after the Nabuwah, after prophethood. Okay, so if she was 65, then at the time of prophethood, how old would she be? 55. And we know that Rasulullah became a prophet at the age of 40, and he married her at 25. So that means at the time of her marriage, he would have been 25, and that would have been 15 years before prophethood. That means she would have been 40. 15 minus 55. But this is the narration from Waqidi. This is the matruk. Then Ibn Kathir says, and it is said 50 sana, that she was 50 at the time of death, and he says فَهُوَ أَصَحْ, and that is the correct opinion, as Ibn Kathir says in Bidayah wa Nihaya. So if she was 50 at death, and that was 10 years after Nabuwah, then how old was she when Rasulullah became a prophet? 40. And we know that Nabuwah was 15 years after their marriage, from the fact that he was 25 and 40 at the time of Nabuwah. That means at the time of her marriage, how old was she? 25. So if we look at these narrations from Ibn Abbas, Ibn Ishaq, and others that we mentioned here, she was between 25 and 28. We may not know exactly, wallahu alam. But she was close to the age of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She was not 15, 20 years older. This is unfortunate. Again, personally, it doesn't matter to me. If you're 20 and you want to marry a 40-year-old woman, go for it. Nothing wrong in the Sharia. If you're a 40-year-old guy and you want to marry a 20-year-old woman, marry her. Nothing wrong in the Sharia. But academic honesty is important to know what is correct, what is authentic, and what is not. All these Sirah durus across the world, and they're teaching this, knowing it's a matruk narration, is not acceptable to me. If she was 40, and then she had 5 children, and the children were not one after the other. We know their birth dates were. Some of them had 2 years and 2+ years between them. That means she would have had to be having children past the age of 50, which is very uncommon. I'm not saying impossible, but it's very uncommon for a woman past the age of 50 to be giving birth. And we know from the Arab, from the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, that this was not known amongst Arab for a woman to even have haid past 50, let alone be having children. Even in America, if women have children after 40, doctors are worried about this. Very, very seldom, shab or nadir, that a woman at 50 would have children. And if that was true, then we would have found that in the books of Tariq, that she was so old that she had children. If it was miraculous, like Ishaq radiallahu anhu, like him, Sarah radiallahu anhu having him at a very old age, then this would have been listed amongst the miracles, and it wasn't. So that's another. But again, we have the clear evidences. They had a very happy marriage. They had a very happy marriage. Obviously, every marriage will have ups and downs, I'm not saying, but from what we know of Tariq, they had a happy marriage. And she was very supportive of him, and he was honest in his dealings. Now, a time came that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam dedicated himself to ibadah. He felt this need to isolate himself. So what he would do, alayhi salatu wasalam, he would leave the house, and leave the family, and leave the children. And he would go up to the ghar, to the cave, to just worship alone. So he would leave and sit there and just worship Allah and face, and if you've been up there, you can see the Kaaba from there. So he could see the Kaaba, and he could see Mecca, but he was alone, and he would worship for days on end. Khadija radiallahu anha didn't say, where you at? How come around the house? Who are you going to go up see on that cave? Who's up there? What's her name? No, instead she would send Maysara, her slave, with food and things to go and deliver to him to make sure that he was comfortable. I mean, this is important. My brothers and sisters in Islam, many women, the day they will say to their brothers, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to help around the house. You know that, right? Like, okay, that's true. But how were his wives too? How was Aisha radiallahu anha? How was Khadija radiallahu anha? Look at that. Don't look at the opposite. And you should look at how were the wives. If your sister, look at how the wives were. The brothers, you should look at how the husbands were. And that will make that balance. And we need to know their lives. How beautiful was that balance? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would spend days at end out there. And at one time, he spent longer than usual. And Khadija radiallahu anha was worried. So she sent her servant out to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And inshallah, next Saturday, we'll talk about what happened next.
Such an important point, subhanAllah. There's an ayah in the Quran that says, Allah won't change the condition of a people until they change the condition of themselves. If your marriage and circumstances within your marriage are not good, how can you expect them to be good if there isn't an element of focus on yourself? How we can fulfill our roles in the best way possible. I think one of the pet peeves that I see today is this element of privilege and entitlement, especially in the West, instead of just having general gratitude for the small things as well as the big things. Men are a part of that as well. They are the leaders of our community. They are the leaders of the household. If they're getting it wrong, we're all getting it wrong, Quran tells us that good men are for good women, and good women are for good men, and bad women are for bad men, and bad men are for bad women. So if you want to be worthy of a good man, you need to focus on yourself and ensure that you're a good woman. And if you want to be worthy of a good woman, you have to work on yourself and ensure that you are a good man. And a good man, not by all these ideologies or the current modern day social values. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that determines what is good. That needs to be where we look to and return to, inshallah. I just wanted to make this video to reassure the sisters that your place is really important. We don't need that validated by people or agendas. Our validation comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our purpose comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we should be running towards that, inshallah. May Allah reward Shaykh Uthman and reward the OMF team for the work they put into dawah and the ummah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us better than what we are, increase us in knowledge, good character and wisdom. Ameen. May He allow us to live a life pleasing to Him in a way that is reflective of the Quran and Sunnah and the best of generations. Ameen. Anyway, I hope you're all doing well, and I'll see you all very soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.